Okay, so I'll just get started. So I'm going to continue on kind of from the topic that I did last time. So as I mentioned last time, I wanted to put together some kind of cohesive like course or something that covers from A to Z everything that there is that I would recommend and how you can create a great technical how-to blog post. And this one's going to be about introductions and conclusions. So I'll do introductions and conclusions. Then next week maybe we'll do a step-by-step how-to list, maybe some section advice or whatever. So I'll just continue on doing that from now. So, all right. So let's see here. I have a little outline, and if anybody's not familiar, whenever I put an outline, whenever we, not only if Adam does a presentation or any of you do a presentation, I'm always going to have everything here on the ATA Writer Meetups Notion page. So there should be a calendar with the time, and if there's anything else going on, if you can click on the page, you'll see the outline and any other files or anything else that you would need to have for this presentation. All right. So let's get started here. So let me first introduce you all with a boring introduction to this presentation. Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to create a blog post introduction. I'll first cover the 4 tenets. I'll then explain a bit more about the tone you should use and a basic recommended structure. Now you may think, okay, that sounds okay. It's informative, but it's a terrible introduction. Now let me compare that with a better one. Hey guys, I know many of you struggle with, now notice my tone of voice. This is kind of how I write in my head sometimes. I write in a different tone of voice. If you read something like this, hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to create a blog post introduction. I normally would just kind of talk in a monotone tone like that in my own head when I'm writing. Versus here, this kind of text, to me at least, and kind of inspires me like, okay, well, it instructs me to write, to kind of even talk in my head a little bit more, upbeat. So, hey guys, I know many of you struggle with creating the ATA blog post introductions. Trust me, I know, but I'm here to fix that. In today's quick presentation, I'm going to show you how everything you need to create an introduction that doesn't kill your reader out of sheer boredom and get them wanting to read more. And with the exclamation point, it's that kind of introduction is upbeat. It's more lively. It really gets them to want to read more. So that's just the quick introduction here. All right, let's go into the hook. So a introduction, grass guy. Anyway, the introduction is about the whole premise is to hook the reader into learning more. Above everything else, it's not to inform the reader of anything. It's not to teach them anything. It's not to do any of that. The premise of the introduction is only to hook them to want to read to the next paragraph. That is the only role of an introduction. So it piques the interest, it makes the reader wonder, oh, how maybe he is going to show me some really cool trick about X, or oh yeah, I do have that issue of I need to learn how to fix that, or whatever. Separate from the posts, that's one thing that a lot of writers get hung up on. They think that the introduction is the very start of the topic of the post, which is to teach them a lesson, to teach them a task, to have them learn something. That's not the purpose of the introduction at all. The purpose of the introduction should be just to hook the reader, to get them to go to the next paragraph. It's completely separate from the actual post. This is one analogy that I kind of thought of when I was writing this outline was, think of the introduction as kind of like the sales guy, the marketing, the upbeat, cheerful, let's get it done and let's read this post. You're selling, the introduction sells the post to the reader. It's supposed to inspire them to learn more, like, okay, yes, I want to learn all about it. It seems kind of cheesy at first, especially from, us engineers, left brain engineers, it seems kind of cheesy to talk like that, but it definitely does help. I mean, there's all kinds of research about talking in that kind of tone, to wear that kind of salesy marketing tone. And then here, think of the introduction as the sales guy, And the sales guy then introduces the rest of the post to the engineer that actually does the work. So it's the sales guy hypes up whatever you're going to do just to sell it, and then it's out to you to then deliver on what the sales guy promised. So you can think of an introduction as just the sales and marketing guy, and then the body of the post is actually supposed to fulfill what the introduction has sold to the reader. All right, so there is 4 kind of primary components to a great intro. One is awareness. That's the first thing you should do. You should get them to notice that they have a quote unquote problem. You'll see this a lot in the marketing world. They say solve the problem. The problem can be I don't know how to learn this topic, or I have an issue with this error message. That's my problem. Or they want to get somewhere else than where they currently are. So that's awareness. Show them that, okay, I do need to do this. I have a problem. Well, I need to know about the problem eventually. So your resolution is next. So you say, go from I have a problem to, well, yes, you do. And here's how I'm going to help. That's the resolution part. You're going to tell them, yes, you have this issue. I know what you're talking about. We've all been there, sort of thing. And here's how I'm going to help you solve that problem through the post. That's the introduction, selling this. And then next is confirmation. And this is when you would typically see this in a lot of courses. So some people have said that the ATA blog post style is kind of like mini courses, which it kind of is. This is where I kind of learned a lot of this from my course creation, to where the next one is confirmation, where by the end of this post, you will know this, or you'll have this, or you'll have built this. You allude to the end result of what they're going to have in the intro. And then finally, the action. Some people add this, some people don't. I tend to do it to where you need to then say, okay, knowing all this, now let's get started. Let's go. I usually would put in, now let's get started, or some kind of little phrase like that. Essentially, it's just a transition between, okay, here's the intro, let's get started, as a transition, and then to the body of the post, where then you go into whatever you're going to write about. All right. Tenet number 1, awareness. So what problem does the reader have? I mentioned that before. The problem can be, I want to learn about how to copy files with Ansible, or I want to learn how to create my first Azure function, or I'm running across this error message and I want to learn how to fix it. That's a problem. Why is fixing that problem important? So you're running across this error message that, I don't know, is preventing your VM from starting. Well, the problem is important because now you can get your VM to start. So it's about telling them why the problem is important. So next one, why should the reader learn how to do this? Yeah, that's great. You're telling me how to learn how to copy some files, but why do I even care? That's kind of goes back to the majorly the awareness part of it, where you need to get them to be aware that they should care about this. Maybe they're seeing this in their environment, or they see a skill, some kind of DevOps or on Terraform or something like that. And think, well, that's neat, but why do I need to care? Awareness is the one. And finally, then ask questions. I ask a lot of questions. This is one thing that I see a lot of writers don't do. They don't ask enough questions. They just tend to write in like documentation. Me, with the conversational style that an ATA blog post should have, you should ask lots of questions. Like, what happens? Like, let's say for an intro. Now, what if you can't get your VM to work? Question mark. There's a lot of, if you ask questions, that really gets gets their brain thinking in. Gets their brain thinking like, oh, maybe. So they want to naturally answer it with their own brain. And that kind of just gets them to be interested a little bit more. And here's a good example. I'm going to use this example across a few of these tenets. So I just picked one at random that was in the pre-approved topics. How to use WinDiff to compare files, and the keyword is WinDiff. So here is, let's go with the bad example first. Here's the bad example of the awareness portion of the intro. So a bad example would be sysadmins need to compare files often. Comparing files consists of evaluating each file and checking for differences. Common, boring, bland, monotone, valid, but it's just boring. They don't care about reading it. And here's the good example that I came up with. You have two files. They both look exactly the same, but are they? Question mark. You could open them up, read their file properties, or you could be 100% sure with WinDiff. That not only tells them aware of they have two files. Yes, I have two files. You could open them up, read their file properties, do it the hard way, the problem, or you could be 100% sure with WinDiff. That's kind of the awareness portion of the introduction. All right, resolution. How are you going to help them fix the problem? How is this post is going to deliver on whatever the title says? So if the title is, how to compare files, how are you going to actually tell them how to do that? Next, allude to the magic. Allude is the key word here, because you don't want to just go into it like that, those bad examples where allude means give them a tease, give them get them in wanting to learn more. That is interesting. If you get them in their head thinking, oh, that's neat, I didn't know that, or oh, that's interesting, or that kind of thinking about it, that alluding of the that premise that you're going to be talking about really helps out. And then as the last part, talk to the end result, not the tool used, how to do it. This goes back, I'll show an example in a minute, but this is a common thing that I see of whenever you talk about a topic, it's always, writers want to automatically go into whatever it is they're going to show. I'm going to show you how, in the introduction, I am going to get the get item PowerShell commandlet to then do this and to then do this. That's not a good introduction. The introduction should be the end result. What are they going to be getting out of running that commandlet, or you showing them what to do? The end result is what's important for the introduction. So here's a good example again. Bad example. WinDiff is a tool that allows you to copy two files and compare their differences. Completely valid, boring as hell. Good example. Using WinDiff, you could just run a single command to compare differences like size, file attributes, and even file contents, and you're done. That adds some specificity in there. It tells you that that kind of makes them alert. If they're not using WinDiff, oh, I couldn't just run a single command. That kind of gets them to think, well, oh, I can run a single command. I can compare differences like files. Examples is another big one that you should try to use. Compare differences like file size, file attributes, get specific with things. That's another important thing you do throughout your post. Be specific in what you can do and what you can, what you're going to present. All right, confirmation. What will they know when they're done reading? This goes back to the little mini courses. By the time you're done with this article, you'll know how to do X, Y, Z. You'll be God of the universe or whatever you're going to be. The end result, the final end result, using WinDiff, you'll be able to compare files. Getting started with, I don't know, with PowerShell or whatever would be, now you're going to learn the basics of PowerShell, that end result. What will the reader have when they are done following your instructions? This goes towards the kind of the project related ones where you're actually going to build something. What are they going to come away with? Sure, you're going to show them the how and the body, but what are they ultimately going to come away with whenever they eventually get done? And then again, talk to the end result, not the tool to use it. I have that in each of these tenets because that's extremely important. End result is what you're looking for in each of these. All right, bad. When you've completed this tutorial, you will know how to use WinDiff and how it works. Sure, you've completed this tutorial. Yeah, you will know WinDiff and how it works. Yeah, okay. Versus, in this tutorial, I for some reason I like saying in this tutorial. I don't know. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I like to do this to kind of have that transition between the previous paragraph and this one. This is what I would typically say. In this tutorial, I'm going to learn how to take advantage of WinDiff and compare files quickly. You learn how to, and that's specificity. You learn how to download and install WinDiff, open it up, and compare two files. By the time you're done, you'll have all the know-how you need to never have to struggle with complex commands again. That is more, it's upbeat. The tone is more upbeat. It's specific about what you're going to show, and it tells them exactly what they're going to be able to do when they're done reading the post. Action. This one isn't as critical. I'll do it every now and then, but essentially it's inspires the reader to learn more. Let's do this, or let's get started, or let's get started learning. I don't know, something like that. Send them off production in a dramatic way. Bad. Crickets. You don't do anything. You just stop at the confirmation, and then you just automatically go to the actual post. Good. Let's get started. Let's dig in. You didn't see that. So it's exactly like that. You don't, that's not, the action is kind of necessary, but I will tend to just kind of put in there as kind of a transition and just kind of get them inspired to learn more and to get started. All right. Tone, as I mentioned before, upbeat, cheery, humorous. Don't be dry. Don't be monotone. Try to ask questions. Try to get them excited about a technical topic. As excited as you possibly can. Don't be like all those other examples, dry, monotone, just those information, just straight information. So examples are always good. Bad. You're going to learn how to compare files with WinDiff. Accurate, but really freaking boring. Good. You'll learn all that you need to compare files and get more done, with an exclamation point. All that you need to compare files, all that you need, that's more than what this shows, and get more done. The very end result, maybe the end result was you want to save time comparing files or something like that, and get more done. That's kind of the end result of everything. Structure. This is kind of specific to ATA blog posts, but essentially it should be short, 2 to 3 paragraphs. You need it short because you don't want to bore them to tears with your introduction. They didn't come here to, they didn't come to your post to hear you ramble on about how great it is. And, you don't want the sales guy trying to sell it for a whole page or something. Get to the sale, get them inspired, and then move on to what they came here to do. And then this is kind of an SEO thing. We'll do it in editing, but keyword in the first paragraph. If you can figure out a way to put the keyword in the first paragraph, the better off. We'll eventually do it in editing, but it's a good habit to get into to get to the point faster. And then, get inspired and let's do it. That's all there is to it. The structure is, all about inspiration, getting them to learn more. All right, conclusion. Let's really quick because the conclusion is not near as important as the introduction is, but it needs to follow some kind of standard style. So boring conclusion, I'm going to conclude this presentation. In this presentation, you learned how to write a better introduction. You learned the 4 tenets of a good intro: tone, structure. Good job. Inspiring in conclusion. If I were to inspire you with some, great conclusion, this is what I would do. This presentation's aim was to take you from writing boring old intros to inspiring, actionable ones. Did it succeed? ? Questions. Again, questions are good. You learned all about the 4 tenets, how not to bore your audience to death, and also about the structure of an intro. Here's another one. Humor. How not to bore your audience to death. Humor, you need to add some kind of humor for the conversational style, how especially the ATA blog posts are written. They're written a very conversational, kind of less serious style. But don't overdo your humor. That's a fine line, but I think it's important to kind of put a few little things here and there. And also a bit about the structure of an intro. Now that you're a blog post intro guru, how do you plan to use your newfound knowledge? This is one thing that I really like doing at the end of posts. Sometimes I don't think about it, but when I do, I recommend this to every blog post. How do you use a plan to your newfound knowledge? Ask them a question. As the very last sentence, ask a question. How are they going to apply what you taught them in the post? Get them thinking, oh, I have this this issue at work, or I have this project that I'm working on, or, oh, I can do this. Get them thinking of how they're going to apply it. So the mission of an ATA blog post isn't to just get them to come and read it and be entertained and move on. It's to get them to learn more. It's to get them to, you are the teacher, you're the mentor, you're the instructor. It's meant to get them to take that and apply that, somewhere else. Conclusion: summarize, inspire, inquire. Those kind of the three words I kind of came up with. Summarize, what did they do? Inspire, what am I going to do with this thing? Inquire, ask them, well, how do you plan to use this knowledge? And again, very short, just like the intro, 1 to 2 short paragraphs, because they're not there. They're not there to learn about the conclusion. They're not there to get a summary. 9 times out of 10, you're going to probably just skip over the conclusion, and sometimes the intro. So that's not the intro or the conclusion aren't the meat of the article. They aren't the conclusion, especially, is not the most important part, but it is important for somebody that may be reading down through the whole post and then can get inspired, and you can ask them a question how they're going to apply that when they're done. So that's all I kind of had for this this presentation. Anybody have any questions about anything I talked about here, or anything in general? I've got half hour or something, so I'm free to talk about anything you like. Nothing.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Thank you.
Sure.
I know the examples are really great too, and I always struggle with kind of the humor part of it. I think I always like, will anyone else think this is humorous or not?
I know it's a fine line. When humor, you never know. There's cultural differences, and all that. You have to be careful. I'll tend to I don't want to overdo it, but I'll tend to kind of make it lighthearted if I can, a little bit every now and then. But yeah, you can definitely overdo it easily.
I think you had a good point on the being specific about things, because you can get pretty, I think some of us have been in technology for a while, kind of get, when you explain something to us, it's not exciting, but you got to remember we're teaching people that probably have never used the tool before. So show them more than it's just WinDiff and it can diff 2 files. It can do so much more. And I think that's a good point that I'll take away from this, because usually, it's Ansible, it just automates stuff. But to someone who's never used it, there's so much more to it than that. So you got to be able to get them excited about it and get it more deeper, I guess. So
that's the hardest part, is that having that beginner mindset of writing like you just discovered it is hard. I mean, it's hard for everyone that's been doing it for a long time. I think I mentioned last time, the hardest course I ever did, the ones I ever do were the 101 courses. It's boring to me by this stage, and yeah, that's great, but it's really, really hard to put yourself into that. But yeah, that beginner mindset is super important, especially in the introduction. Hey guys, I know you try to act all excited about, I'm going to show you this cool thing. It kind of sounds cheesy at first, but I think it really helps.